I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. All right. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursday for the Roundtable and Friday for the Sabby Show. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So before I get into tonight's news stories, I actually have Michelle is here. I told you guys I wanted to talk about growing your own food. So Michelle is going to explain to us the storage requirements about growing your own food and the effects of climate change. And then next week, there'll be a part 2 to this segment. And Logan will be here and explain to you how to grow your own food if you live in an apartment. So this should be really informational. So Michelle, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Michelle DeVillier. I am originally from Southeast Texas, and I now live in Washington State. I am a fiber artist, and I craft for Red Berets. My pet issue is national Medicare for all, improved Medicare for all. I think that's very important. But my background is in agriculture. I grew up on a rice farm and cattle and horse ranch. And so that's pretty much who I am and where I'm coming from.
Awesome. So Michelle, the first question I have for you is, what would you say are the easiest crops to grow? Because I know some people have been asking me this, like, where do they start? Like if they're just beginning and they're trying to grow their own food.
I would say the simplest thing would be salad greens because they have a shallow root system. They recrop. You can like cut them and they'll come back. They're easy to take. I know you said you had a guest that was going to do apartment living. You can put them like in small containers. So did you have a question?
Oh, no, go ahead. I didn't know that.
One of the things that I was going to do, I don't know if you couldn't do it in an apartment on a balcony because it's going to be heavy, but you can take the children's swimming pools, the little wading pools that you get at like the dollar store for just like $4 or $5, put soil in them, perforate the bottom with a knife, poke some holes in it so you get drainage. And you can put your soil in there and then you have a weed-free area that's already contained. You don't have to build any framework. It's just a cheap, easy way to go.
That's good to know. Which crops would you say grow the fastest?
Salad greens.
The salad greens
Definitely.
also?
Salad greens. Salad greens are going to grow really fast. If you want to do something like tomatoes or any of the peppers, you're going to need a deeper rooted container because you have a deeper root base. Mm-hmm. Think about it this way. What you see above the ground, you're going to see an equal amount generally below the ground in a root system. So imagine that. Now your root system can grow around in the pot. You don't want it to get root bound. But I mean, if you've got a great big plant, you don't have to have that much space for your root system. You just have to be aware that there is that much material, that much growth in that pot. It's just not as spread out as the leaves and the branches are.
Interesting. So, there's a question here in the chat from Walter. He says, how do I grow potatoes and where do I get potato seeds? Good question, Walter.
Okay. Potatoes don't grow with seeds. You're going to take a chunk of an old potato that has like an eye on it because the eyes are where your new growth is good. That's actually your new plant starting to shoot up, and it will put roots out and everything from that. So you'll take a potato and quarter it. But potatoes, I want to caution you about potatoes. You need a large area and a very deep, well-worked ground soil to plant into, because your potatoes are tubers. So all your potatoes are going to be down in the ground underneath the plant. You understand? If you have a bunch of rocks in your soil, that's going to deform your root system. It's also going to deform your potato, which is okay. I mean, it doesn't change the taste of it. It's just, it's going to be a little more difficult to dig them up. They're a fairly early planted plant also. Salad greens are early. Different crops come off at different time. So if you grow, say, salad greens early on, you can grow a different kind of crop later on. You can also double crop things. If you want to grow, say, fruits, and you get a big container, you can plant like a blueberry bush in it, and then down around the bottom of it, you plant strawberry plants. So in the same container, you have two different fruits, and they come off slightly at different times. Your strawberries should come off before your blueberries and then continue to produce throughout the time that your blueberries produce, unless it gets really hot where you are.
That's a good point. Thank you so much for that. So one of the things that's come up, I mentioned this on Twitter. I know you saw it, obviously. I was like, we need to learn how to grow our own food because now Joe Biden's talking about a food shortage possibly coming our way. And this is something we've been saying to people a lot on RBN. We really need to stop relying on these grocery store chains. Like we need to learn how to take care of ourselves just in the event that there is no food at those grocery stores. And how do we know how to do that? But one of the things that came up in that thread, someone mentioned, you were one of them as well, but another person also mentioned this. If you're going to grow food, you need to learn how to store it. So the question I have for you is, how do you store fruits and vegetables? And I'll pull up the chart for this as well.
Okay. That's the chart is going to tell you there's a large variety of ways to store things. And it basically is going to have to do with what a chemical gas that's formed called ethylene. And that is the gas that ripens fruits and vegetables. So if you have things like avocados and bananas produce a lot of this gas. So if you get them in close proximity, they're going to produce a lot of gas. It's going to ripen really fast. Other things like blueberries and blackberries, they don't produce much of it at all. There are other factors when you think about storing things as well. You need to think about whether or not they need to be refrigerated. And there's no real rule of thumb. I will tell you that berries, by and large, need to be refrigerated. And they need to you don't want to pack them deeply, because the weight of the berry itself will compress and that will juice your fruit. And when you get that moisture released, it will mold like in hours, really, really fast. So berries need to be refrigerated. They need to maintain an airflow. That means you don't want them closed up in a plastic container. You want them to be able to breathe. The same thing with salad greens. You want them to be able to breathe. Things like bananas. Don't put your bananas in the refrigerator or they're going to brown really, really fast. However, if you want to use your bananas to make banana bread, things like that, you want to kick up the sugar content, put them in the refrigerator because they'll ripen really, really fast. Ripening is actually the increase of the sugar in the fruit itself. That's what the ripening effect is. It is the production of the sugar in the fruit. So the riper it is, generally the sweeter it is as well. But you don't want to keep You don't want to keep the bananas in the refrigerator. You, oddly enough, don't want to keep your tomatoes in the refrigerator. You want to keep, you don't want to keep them at room. You want to keep them at room temperature. Potatoes you want to keep cold, but you don't want to keep them in a refrigerator because there again they produce ethylene, which will increase the sweetness. So if you want a potato to be really sweet, you can put it in the refrigerator, but it will alter the taste of your potato if you store it in the refrigerator. It will increase the sweetness of it, which is a really kind of weird thing to have happen if you're not expecting it. I was trying to, let me think, what else?
I was just going to say, there's something mentioned here that I've been telling people for a while. Don't cut produce until you are ready to use it. Cut produce is vulnerable to microorganisms. Yes.
When you cut something, you're increasing the surface area. All the surface area is open for bacteria, for viral products, for, all kinds of things, for mold and mildew. That's where it all gets in. It bruises. So yes. And also do not wash it. That is another thing you do. If you wash it, dry it before you refrigerate it, but be sure it's really good and dry. So yeah, that is a very, very important thing. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to mention it.
Yeah. I've seen people do that a lot. Like they'll cut up like fruit the night before and then they're like, yeah, I'll use that for the morning. And I'm like, yeah, no. You're not really supposed to do that. You're not really supposed to do that.
If you're going to cut up fruit like that, like bananas, or if you're going to cut up avocado, which is a fruit, things like, put a little lemon juice on them, a little acid to keep them from browning. Same thing with potatoes. Also, if you're going to cut up potatoes, put them in water. Submerge them in water. It'll keep them from browning. It'll also keep them from dehydrating before you cook them. Like if you're chopping up a bunch of potatoes to make hash browns or to make French fries or, whatever you're going to do with them.
And here's something someone mentioned tomatoes in the chat. It says here how to store tomatoes. Keep tomatoes in your storeroom away from sunlight.
Right. Sunlight will ripen them. It will speed up the ethylene production. Also, you want to put them with the stem side down. You want to flip them upside down while they're ripening. So, yeah, that is an excellent article. It will tell you all kinds of things about food storage. It is geared towards restaurants, but if you read through it, it is completely applicable to the household storage methods. It's not talking about anything any different. It's just a really, really good source of information. If you want to talk about things like dairy and meats, that's a whole nother issue. I will tell you that eggs do not have to be refrigerated. A lot of people refrigerate eggs, but I had chickens on the farm and I would get like 4 and 5 dozen eggs every 2 or 3 days. And they'd sit in a big bowl on my counter. And then I'd give them to people. I lived on the edges of a Hasidic Jewish community. And the women there were very particular about their food and their eggs. And they'd come and I would give them the eggs. And but the thing, again, about eggs is once you wash them, you remove that protective coating on the shell, which does open them up for spoiling faster or bacteria. And that is why they refrigerate them in the grocery store. Eggs will last 2-3 weeks. Eggs are long-lived products. They will last a long time. So
wow. There's something here about cucumbers too. And this is something I started doing about a year ago. A friend of mine told me about this. To keep cucumbers fresh, wrap clean and dry cucumbers in a paper towel and place them inside a plastic bag. That's exactly what I do with them. because cucumbers will, especially once you cut it and you don't use the whole cucumber, cucumbers will go bad like that.
Right, right. I am not a big cucumber fan, so that's one I don't really know a lot about. They grow like mad down where I am. I just don't care for a cucumber too much.
Now I have a question in reference to fruit that you grow. Could
Okay.
you possibly freeze the fruit so that, like, for example, for my smoothies, I buy frozen fruit. Could you grow the fruit and then freeze it and then throw it into smoothies, or not so
Absolutely.
much? You can? Okay.
Absolutely. And in fact, that is a wonderful way to do if you have a good crop, is to freeze it. And my recommendation on things like that, you want to make sure when you freeze your fruit, like blueberries or blackberries, any of the smaller berries, make sure they are completely dry. And if you freeze them like that, they will come out like little individual pieces of fruit, just like when you first picked them, only frozen. If any moisture gets in, then they're going to clump together. But yeah, that is a great way to save fruit. That's a great way to save anything. When you talk about freezing vegetables, a lot of times you'll want to blanch them, which is just to put them in boiling water just for a second or two. That gets rid of any of the bacteria. It also seals the color in them, the chlorophyll. So that's something that if you're going to freeze those kind of things. I've actually made cheese and things too, which is an interesting thing to do. I highly recommend that you use pasteurized milk.
Yes.
I think it is a very, very dangerous thing to use unpasteurized milk. I know you can do it, and a lot of people do it safely, but if you don't know what you're doing and you're not the one that's collecting that milk and you haven't seen how it's collected, I just would not trust anyone. I just wouldn't. That's incredibly dangerous.
Thank you so much for saying that. Another question I had for you, and guys, I put the link to this food storage chart in the chat. I'll place it here again for those of you who just joined. That way you can access that later on if need be. But another question that I had for you is, what about climate change? How does climate change, or currently right now, how is it affecting crops?
It is devastating large crops right now. In fact, farmers buy what they call crop insurance. When my father was farming in the 60s and 70s, you didn't insure your crop. Come the 80s, you started insuring your crop. And now nobody will farm. You can't get a loan to put a crop in unless you buy insurance. And the reason that it is having such an effect is water related largely. It comes down to, are you having a drought? Are you having a flood? It's not just temperature related. It's more climate, water related. And that is a huge thing going forward. Your temperate zones are going to shift. Your hardiness zones, where you plant. When you look at the map of the United States, you will see that there are color bands, and each of those bands relates to a group of conditions that allow you to grow certain types of plants. That's all shifting. Everything is going to move north. The band is going to move north. Texas, I am afraid a large part of Texas is going to become the new Dust Bowl. I really, really believe that. It's already started, and it's been going on. It's been going on for decades. I mean, it's not anything new. The acceleration of it is huge. If you are planting your garden, it's a lot easier to control those kind of things in a garden, especially if you are doing container gardens, because if you get a flood, well, you can put your container up on cinder blocks or something, elevate it a little bit. If you have a drought, then you can, you can water small areas. When you're talking about farming, they are taking water out of the rivers. They're taking water out of the aquifers. I know at one point, California was taking water from Texas to water to all of that agricultural land. California should be a desert. That agricultural area that produces the bulk of our food, they're almost done for. I don't know how they afford the water there. Watering your crop is so expensive. I'm talking to water a crop of rice is like $300,000-$400,000 just for the water to put on the field.
Oh my gosh.
It's prohibitive, and we need that water to drink. So we're going to be competing with agriculture for our drinking water. We already are. I don't know how that's going to be resolved. States are going to fight over water. Are you going to dam? Is one state going to dam the Colorado River and then the states below it don't get any water? Oh, you talk about some angry people and some legal fights. That's already happened. It's happening now. It's going to continue to happen.
Yeah, there was a woman that came on a couple weeks ago and she said that Bill Gates has been stealing water from her town. And a lot of people don't know about it. She's in Arizona. I forget the name of the town, but this is the shifting planting zones picture here.
Yes.
So you can see this is what Michelle is referring to. You can see the shift happening. This is very important. And in reference to water, because this is another question that has continued to come up, water is obviously going to be a huge problem, like in the future. And well, maybe not that far in the future. Is there a way that we can conserve water or that we can effectively store water? Because some people have said you can't store water because there's bacteria or whatever. And then some people live in states where it's illegal to collect rainwater.
I've heard that. That's insane. That's just insane. Yes, you can store water, and you can store water for years. You have to do it in sealed containers. If you break the seal, then you're opening it up for bacteria to get in. You have to make sure that you're doing it in the right kind of container. That is you're talking something that's much more difficult to deal with. And storing water is going to be a problem to be dealt with on a larger level in society. Individual households storing water you can do that, but I just don't think that's what's going to actually be the practical solution. If we get down to that level, then we've got some serious problems. There are ways, if you store your water and it gets contaminated, boil it, get rid of the bacteria. If it's contaminated with something like heavy metals or things that you can't get out of the water, there's a process called distillation where you boil it until it's steam. Then you collect the steam, and as the steam condenses, that's pure water without any of the contaminants in it. So that's a way to take care of your water. Also, storing water for a period of time. Water does what's called goes stale. It loses its oxygenation. So if you're going to store water, be sure you aerate it before you drink it a couple of times. But yeah, you can definitely store water. That can be done. That can definitely be done. I mean, we have water towers. Think about them.
Yeah, I worry about places like California and Texas, particularly, especially Southern California. I meant to click on Southern California here. I think I clicked on Northern California, but there's an interactive map here that you guys can view so you can see what it's like in your area. And I'll go ahead and I'll share that in the chat as well. But this is really important for people to know You guys, like, we need to start talking about this now.
We also need to be talking about what is happening to the quality of water in the aquifers and the contamination, and how climate change is going to drive that contamination. Like in the Houston Ship Channel, there's a dioxin like storage where they got rid of dioxin, hazardous waste, and then they put the Houston Ship Channel over it. It's leaking into the ship channel. When I was in organic classes and taking chem classes in Houston, we were doing labs. The specific gravity of water, what everything is based on, is 1. We had what we called floaty water because Houston's water specific gravity was lighter than 1. That's because it had petrochemicals in it. That's a huge, huge issue. And if you've got agriculture, you've got runoff of all kinds of chemicals, pesticides, herbicides. Farming practices are going to have to change, and Bill Gates buying up farmland is a huge, huge issue.
Yeah, I know. I've been talking about that quite often. It's a scary problem. DFO said, "Hey Sabby, what are the cons about growing veggies?"
You get a certain thing at a certain time of year. So you have times of year where you're going to have to grow different kinds of vegetables. And there is why you need to know how to store them. Do you want to freeze them? Do you want to can them? How long are they good for? That article, I can't tell you about everything. There's so many different things and so many factors, but that article that you put in the chat is an excellent reference for that.
Awesome. Michelle, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Sure. All right. Have a good rest of your show.
Thanks. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, guys. I hope you take that information in and pass it on to friends and family members of yours as well. Like I said, there will be a part 2 to this next week. Logan is coming on and he's going to tell you how to grow food if you live in an apartment. And I've seen Logan do this before. He lives in an apartment in New York City. And I'm like, okay, if Logan can do it and he's in New York, you know, a lot of people rent and live in apartments. So people need to learn how to do this if you don't have a yard, right? And of course, there's also community gardens, but not everybody has access to that. So what are we talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Really quick, let me give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, guys. If you want to become a Sabby patron, I have 4 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, and Ultimate. All of their names are listed here. Thank you guys so much for your support. And their names are also scrolling across the bottom of the screen as well. So let me show you what we're talking about tonight. We've got some pretty interesting stories. Doobie-doobie-doo. All right. Tonight, we are talking about Jimmy Dore and Caleb Maupin call out Breadtube. That was an interesting discussion. I can't wait to get into that. Caleb has been on here a couple of times, actually. The last time he was on here, he talked about Breadtube. So I definitely want to get into that discussion. Also, I'm going to talk about Cenk Uygur smears Tulsi Gabbard. What was that all about? And of course, we have an independent candidate spotlight. She will be here at 8:30. So I definitely need to make sure I watch my time because you guys know that I can talk a lot. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the Jimmy Dore, Caleb Maupin story. So Caleb Maupin was on Jimmy Dore. I believe it was Monday. Today is Wednesday. Yes, it was Monday. And they talked about a lot of things. They talked about the issue with Russia and Ukraine, and they also talked about the concern with Breadtube. So I want to play a snippet of that and give you my take on this as well. For those of you who do not know what Breadtube is, you're going to find out. So Here we go.
Sucked into this internet subculture, this internet universe that presents itself as left-wing, that presents itself as socialist or Marxist or anarchist, but is really just a way to rile up young people who associate with progressive causes, anti-racism, workers' rights, and get them supporting the U.S. political establishment against the right wing. And so the more I kind of observed this internet subculture, and these people are getting hundreds of thousands, millions of views. They're being promoted by the New Yorker magazine, and they're speaking in the name of Marxism and socialism and leftism. But the essence of what they say is that the United States and U.S. imperialism, they are the good guys against, these authoritarian regimes around the world. They're spreading freedom. They say that socialism is just an employee stock ownership program. They don't question the rule of profits. They just want to kind of experiment with worker cooperatives, basically. And it's pretty clear that they are getting propped up by one wing of the establishment. Now, in the book,
Now, I want to comment here for a second for those who are not aware. So Caleb Maupin did write a book called Breadtube Feeds Imperialism. And so I do want to talk about the imperialism part for just a moment. Basically, Breadtube refers to commentators on YouTube that they appear to be socialists, or they say they're socialists, or they say that they're leftists, but they are at the same time feeding particularly a young generation pro-imperialist talking points. Some of you in the chat may already know the people I'm talking about. He's going to mention them as well. But this is what they do. And they have targeted a young group. They're really popular on Twitch. Some of them got started on Twitch. We'll get into that in just a second. And so they say that they're socialists. They'll say that they're leftists. But at the same time, you will hear them say that it's okay for the United States government to invade another country. It's okay for the United States government to intervene in another country's conflict. They are pro-imperialist and they are pro-war, but they talk about it in a way where it's not as blatant, if I should say. It's not as blunt when they speak these messages. They are called Breadtube because they are making a lot of money on YouTube, but they kind of came out of nowhere. These are not people that have been doing this for a long time. You guys know it takes a while to build up a following on YouTube. Those of us that do commentary, right? It takes a while. These are people who literally came out of nowhere, just one day, just woke up, started a channel, and boom, just like that, they have 300,000, 400,000 subscribers. That's not normal. I want to make that very clear to people. That is not normal on YouTube unless you are a celebrity or you are a public figure. But even if you look at some of the people who do commentary who were public figures before, you didn't even see that happen for them. So for example, Brianna Joy Gray was already a public figure before she started Bad Faith Podcasts. You don't see Bad Faith with 300,000, 400,000 subscribers that quickly, right? I think Bad Faith may be at 60K or whatever, but that's someone who was a public figure. So the fact that someone who was a nobody that nobody knew all of a sudden one day started a channel and instantly got like 300,000 subscribers, that's suspect. And there have been people on YouTube that other people have pointed to and they've said, those people are plants. Because that's just not natural. With the YouTube algorithm, that's not how it works unless you are a celebrity per se. I'll go back into the video.
Go into the evidence of that. But then we have further evidence of that thanks to the work of Max Blumenthal and the Gray Zone. We now know that one of these voices, Abigail Thorne, was directly being subsidized by the British government, by foundations tied to USAID and to the British royal family and such. So, what I said in the book based on estimates, right, based on some of the people in the background advising them that I heard about and other things, has now been pretty well confirmed. These folks are basically some kind of psyop to get young people that have socialistic or anti-imperialist instincts and get them to serve the empire.
So you're saying and you're saying there's evidence to back this up, that there are YouTubers in the political lefty space, and a lot of them, you're saying a lot, not just, but a lot of them, and they're called Breadtube, and you're saying that those people are somehow being co-opted by the intelligence communities to push an agenda?
Sure. I mean, I received quite a bit of information about who was advising them. There's an individual who's tied to military psychiatrists who appeared on CNN calling for mass deprogramming of the country after January 6th. And there are other things that point to some kind of covert support, the mainstream media highlighting some of these people and celebrating them. And then their foreign policy stances could come directly from CNN. And then we have that great report that was done by the Gray Zone, and that all points to this. But the thing is, there's a precedent for this, right? We often talk about the Congress for Cultural Freedom program, which was in the 1950s. The CIA realized that basically, if they wanted to hurt the left and hurt Marxists, one way to do it was to start funding certain voices. And you had the CIA set up Partisan Review magazine. You had the CIA basically launch a whole program to subsidize left-wing voices that were anti-communist, that were against the Soviet Union.
Okay, I'm going to pause it here, and I'm actually going to move this out of tight VNC, and I'm going to actually just share my screen for this video because it works better that way. So let me just go in here and pick up the link. Oh, I can't pick up the link. Let me go. So basically, you guys get what he's saying. These people are plants. And he's going to mention the names in just a second, but that's what's happening here. So I'm going to pick up from here.
I'm here with Caleb Maupin.
Go to that point. I think it was at 2 minutes in.
That have socialistic or anti-imperialist instincts and get them to serve the empire. So
it's 4 minutes in, right about there. All right. Just works better. I have less buffer when I do it this way. So let me go ahead and share. So this is important for people to know.
Subsidized left-wing voices that were anti-communist, that were against the Soviet Union, that were against China. And there's a long history of covert manipulation of left-wing voices, kind of presenting left-wing voices that are, in a way, acceptable to the establishment. And it was actually Irving Kristol, who was the director of the Congress for Cultural Freedom program for the CIA. He eventually became considered the ideological father of neoconservatism. But a lot of big names that one associates with the left, like Mary McCarthy, Hannah Arendt, Susan Sontag, they got their start with this CIA-funded publication. So there's a precedent for this kind of behavior. And during the Cold War, this was done, yes.
So this isn't new. In fact, so this isn't new that the CIA, the intelligence communities, that they co-opt media and they fund media directly a lot of times and to push an agenda, imperialistic, hegemonic agenda. This is not new. This isn't a crazy conspiracy theory. This has been documented. The Church Committee, that was in the 70s. And can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it became revealed in the 1970s with the Church Committee. That was during the presidency of Jimmy Carter. You had a congressional committee that investigated the FBI and CIA, and they revealed a number of things, including Project Mockingbird, which was, the CIA's wing that was handling the media, as well as Project MK Ultra, which was about promoting hallucinogens and drugs on college campuses and into left-wing and radical spaces, and that there was all kinds of foul play. And again, this is documented. Yeah, I mean, these are facts. These are historical facts. There are mainstream media.
So this has been done before. And this is what I want to point out to everyone. Sebastian, I see your comment in the chat. I want to see the receipts. Is there an article that discusses Breadtube and imperialism in detail? Yes. Gray Zone actually covered this. Eric, I think you put that link in the chat. If you could put it in there again. Gray Zone actually covered this a couple of months ago. And they had facts about this. I want to fast forward to the part where he starts to name names.
in socialism and workers' rights and opposing the police state, that they, follow a certain foreign policy agenda. And there's nothing particularly scandalous about this. We should almost expect this kind of behavior at the end of the day, right? I mean, this is how they work. They try to craft discourse in their own way. What's interesting is that the primary activities of the Breadtube crowd seem to be about getting left-wing voices to kind of, participate in this partisan red state versus blue state fight. And you, Jimmy, have been targeted ridiculously because, oh my goodness, you interviewed somebody from the Boogaloo Boys. Oh my gosh, right? This cancel culture. Never talk to any Trump supporter. Never talk to anyone on the right. This is a big part of this because they don't want an actual movement of the people from below, where you have people with different perspectives and different ideologies, different religious backgrounds. They don't want that. What they want is an army of foot soldiers to do the work of Joe Biden and protect Joe Biden from the Republicans. And
100%. And I'm going to come forward just for a second. And there's something I want to mention here. What they also do is anyone that speaks out, like people like me, people like Jimmy, RBN, anyone that speaks out against the establishment narrative, especially Joe Biden right now, he's the one that's in office, they'll smear us and they'll say that we're a part of a red-brown alliance. I experienced that last year when we did the marches for Medicare for All, which were in over 50 cities across this country. I experienced it on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. This is what they'll do. Anytime we try to do any type of direct action where we're bringing people together and we're not paying attention to the left versus right divide, those people and their minions will come in and they will smear us and they will attack us. They are doing the job that they're actually supposed to do. That's what they are there for. They are there to make sure that the status quo is maintained. Again, I want to give you an example. When Jimmy Dore goes on Tucker Carlson's show, he gets smeared. When Aaron Mate went on Tucker Carlson's show, he was smeared. But it seems to be perfectly fine for Nomiki Kunst to go on Fox News whenever she feels like it. Anybody notice that? I was talking about that last night, how she was just on Fox News, how she did not respond to those questions in such a good way, how she let them out left her, but she goes on there multiple times and they don't smear her because at the end of the day, she's still keeping you in the two-party system. You guys see? So these are some of the examples that I want you to point to. Why is it okay for some people to talk to people on the right, but it's not okay for other people on the left to talk to people on the right? Pay close attention to that. Close attention. I'm going to go back into the video.
And if you can just, cancel anyone who's deemed quote unquote right wing, you can isolate people and make them loyal foot soldiers of one section of the ruling class.
So they did come out. So that's the biggest thing that they seem to want to shut down, is if meeting the establishment and the intelligence community, if somebody from the left and the right figure out that they have common enemies that they can work together against, that's what they have to demonize, like they did to me when I interviewed that Boogaloo Boy, which, by the way, people still don't realize it. Boogaloo Boy, 100% different than Proud Boys. Boogaloo Boys are the antidote to Proud Boys. Boogaloo Boys are anti-imperialism, anti-cop, anti-Trump, anti-racist, and pro-LGBTQ and pro-Black Lives Matter. That's what Boogaloo Boys are. But the Breadtube people wanted to manipulate that and distort that into Boogaloo Boys are right-wing racists, just like Trump and Proud Boys and Nazis. That's what they wanted people to think, and it's the exact opposite. And that's why I trended on Twitter for 3 days straight one time, was because they have all their bots and everything coming out to try to create a false narrative that Jimmy Dore's working with Nazis, instead of Jimmy Dore is reaching out to working class libertarians who share a lot of the same goals of people on the progressive left, and we share a common enemy. And so they had to try to distort it. It's not, it works on some people. It certainly isn't helpful, But it's to a point where when people attack me that way, it actually does help me now, because now they see the people who are doing those attacks and we've explained to them who they are, except I didn't know who these people are. Who are the people who are on Breadtube? You mentioned someone named Destiny. I don't know.
Okay, he's about to name the names, but I do want to comment on something just for a second. That was another thing, the whole Boogaloo Boy interview. Look, I'm not a part of a Boogaloo. When I first heard about the Boogaloo Boys, I thought someone was talking about Electric Boogaloo. It was a movie in the 80s. There was a part 1 and a part 2. It was about breakdancing. It was actually kind of cool movie, actually. So I didn't even know what people were talking about. And then so I had to do my own research, like what in the world is a Boogaloo? Apparently it is not a breakdancer. And yes, so I've seen things about this organization saying that is a racist organization. I've also seen things saying that it depends on the chapter. It's different, like, segments of it. And apparently Magus group or whatever was not a racist group. They were pro LGBTQ. They were, anti, I guess, government, definitely for gun rights. We're helping Black Lives Matter during protests. And I want to point something out. If it had been someone like Vosh who brought a Boogaloo Boy on, this would have not been a big deal. If it would have been Majority Report who brought a Boogaloo Boy on, this would not have been a big deal. It is only a big deal when it's people who are no longer fooled by the two-party system, who are no longer fooled about left versus right, who are focusing more so on the class issue and realize that the big problem that we have in this country is the elites hold on to so much wealth and the majority of Americans have so little. When those people bring on someone like that, they will be smeared and they will be attacked. The biggest fear that they have is for people to come together. They don't want that to happen. That's why they killed Fred Hampton. That's why they killed Martin Luther King. And I will also add, that's probably why they killed Malcolm X as well. Because it was when Malcolm X started to change his philosophy, he decided, you know what? I want to get away from the rhetoric that I've been talking about. I don't think that's the right way. I actually don't think it's right for Black people and white people to be separate and for us to have this type of hatred. I think we need to focus and practice on love and coming together. The moment he changed his ideology, the moment he changed his rhetoric, they killed him. I'm going to go back into the video.
Know who that is. Who else? But these are popular people.
Sure. Well, this Destiny character, who I guess, he's kind of the kingmaker of Breadtube, if not part of Breadtube himself, right?
Really?
He's a guy from Nebraska who worked at a carpet cleaning company, but figured out a way to start playing video games on the internet full time. And he became kind of famous for playing a video game on the internet, and that was his life. And then randomly, around the time Trump got elected, he suddenly started debating right wingers, and he was kind of a right winger himself. He was a libertarian or something. But then he started debating right wingers, and mainstream media outlets were like heralding him as, oh, this famous internet troll is going to debate the right wing and debate Trump supporters. And he was getting a lot of play that way. And it seemed like that was his new gig, was debating folks. There's this character, I almost don't want to say his name, but I think we know him as Vosh, and this character, I mean, his father's a well-connected Hollywood person. He's from Beverly Hills. And he right now is just a cheerleader for the Azov battalion and the far right extremist forces in Ukraine. He's gone all the way into he wants this war to keep going. He wants Russians to die. He wants a big war between the United States and Russia. And he's made that clear.
And I want to chime in here as well. Yes, Destiny and Vosh, they are suspect and they are very dangerous. Vosh in particular has a young audience. And this is why I told you guys, I really want those of us at RBN to reach the young people. We need to reach the kids in high school. We really need to reach the kids in college. I'm talking ages 16 to 22. We need to reach that group. And I know I'm not reaching that group because when I look at my analytics, nah, bud. Not that age group. But what they did is a similar tactic to what the military has done. They have gone after these young groups on Twitch. Military recruitment is trying to recruit young people on Twitch. Vosh also, same thing. Remember, these people were gamers. And Twitch is the perfect platform for that. So what is very dangerous is that Vosh is having these talking points that are pro-war, that are pro-imperialist. And by the way, when he talks about these issues, he does so in such a calm tone. So it doesn't seem like what he's saying is bad. And if you're not educated about these issues, you can easily buy into what he's saying. So they are already starting to brainwash the minds of young people. This is very scary. And this is something that we have to break this up. We have to get in there. We have to reach the younger people. So they are already training them at a young age that imperialism is good and that war is good. But they will still tell you that they are socialist or that they are a left libertarian, or hell, even they're leftists. All these people are bought and paid for.
Again, if you watch his streams, what's kind of amusing is that he's not very familiar with left-wing politics at all. I mean, he is handed lists of quotations, you know, from Lenin, from Marx, and he'll read them off as if that means you should vote for Joe Biden. And it's really kind of pathetic to watch. But one thing that I find to be interesting about all of this, you know, you talk about the importance of people coming together. You know, Mumia Abu-Jamal, that was an important cause in the 90s. This was a Black liberation fighter who was facing the death penalty. And the reason that Mumia Abu-Jamal is still alive, he didn't get the death penalty, he's still in prison, but the reason that the state of Pennsylvania couldn't execute this former Black Panther was because a lot of people of different political views came together to stand against his execution. You had the far left, communists, anarchists, others. You also had Black nationalists, people with the Nation of Islam, Minister Farrakhan. You also had Catholic priests and nuns. The Pope stood against the execution of Mumia. You had Mennonites and Amish people. And in 1995, it was hundreds of thousands of people piled into Philadelphia with one demand: don't execute Mumia Abu-Jamal. And that's why Mumia, this Black revolutionary journalist, wasn't executed, because people came together, overcame their differences. But nowadays, it seems like instead of doing that, we're supposed to engage in this kind of politics where the left talks to their crowd and riles them up and tries to purify them of any deviant thoughts within their own ranks. The right talks to their own crowd and does this, and everyone gets poorer, and the country polarizes politically, and austerity and war march ahead.
And this is why they don't want us to come together. It's working exactly the way it's designed to work. This is what I want people to understand. I see I got a couple super chats. I want to go ahead and grab these. Thanks so much for the super chat. The Traveler, wasn't Breadtube exposed for being on the CIA's payroll a while back? Yes. Thank you so much for that. You guys really should check out that Gray Zone article. Thank you so much for the super chat, Ashura. You missed out Glenn on TMR. He's number 2 after JD. I don't know what TMR is. Oh, the Majority Report. He's number 2 after JD. Thank you so much, Ashura. Yeah, they'll come after him as well. They will come after him as well. Ty G has a good point. They're openly inviting influencers and social media persons to the White House. So that means they were doing it covertly before. Right. This is what I was telling you guys. They try to reach the young people. They're trying to get them now, because I told you guys this before. A lot of my students told me that they were more likely to embrace socialism. And the United States government knows that. So they're trying to do everything that they can to stop that. They want to keep them in the establishment narrative. They don't want them to embrace socialism. They see that coming. They see that as something that is scary. And so they're trying to do everything that they can to stop it. And that includes infiltrators. That includes people who pose as socialists, who pose as leftists, but they are really put there to keep you in the status quo. You got to watch some of these people, man. You got to be, it's terrible, because you even have some of the leftist commentators embracing these guys. Like, if you're on the left and you have a show and you were like all pro Bernie and you're given a platform to Vosh, that's very suspect in my book. That means either you want part of his audience, that means either you are falling for that narrative, or that means that you were fooling us all along and that's really what you feel, or you're just trying to get paid. Either way, either one, pick one. They're all bad. You should not be giving a platform to people like Vosh. You should not be giving a platform to people like Destiny. With the rhetoric that they are preaching, if you consider yourself to be a leftist per se, and damn sure if you consider yourself to be a socialist. Vosh debated Nick from RBN. For those who don't know, this goes, I think, like a year or two back. Nick was asking Vosh if Black people should vote for their oppressors. Do you want to know what Vosh's response was? He said yes. He said yes. And few people will call that out. But imagine if it was someone else who said that. Imagine if it was Jimmy Dore who made that response. Imagine if it was Glenn Greenwald who made that response. Oh, they would be coming for their head. There are certain things that those people can get away with that those of us that they keep calling us a red-brown alliance, we could never get away with making those kind of comments. I want you guys to really understand, we would never get away with that. If I sat here and I made the comments that Vosh has made about Black people, the comments that he has made about the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, some people are going to starve and die, but whatever. If I made those comments, I would be done. Couple things coming against me here. Number one, I don't believe in the two-party system. And number two, let's be real, I'm Black. I would be done. But this is the point that we try to bring up a lot of times on RBN. There are certain things that these rich white leftists can say and get away with in this space that we could never get away with. And I think if you've been paying attention, you notice it as well. That's why you don't see me, a lot of the times, you don't see me try to prop them up. You don't see me give them kudos. I tell you exactly who they are and exactly what I see, because I've been noticing it for a long time. How many of those people who sit up there and prop up Vosh, how many of those people have you seen bring Black people on their shows? And don't come back at me with Nina Turner, Cornel West, Rihanna Joy Gray. I'm not talking about those same 3 Black people that are the only ones that seem to be allowed to come on. How many times have you seen them bring Black people on their show? Think about that. There's a reason for that. And everybody needs to call it out. This is why we started our own platform, because you guys were not getting a true working class perspective. You weren't getting the perspective from Black people who had not been politicians, from Black people who had not been press secretaries, for Black people who were not elite academics. You were not hearing that perspective. Now you can. And I don't give a damn. I'm calling all of them out. People make these comments about Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is the only one that I've seen who has a platform that large that has no problem going onto smaller channels, has no problem going onto Black small channels. Whereas some of those same people who've been in this space just as long or even longer won't even acknowledge that we fucking exist. Keep that in mind. Going back into the video.
This is a setup for disaster. This isn't how serious political organizing works.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that is the biggest threat to them, is the populist left, populist right, realizing we have a common enemy, realizing that we can organize together against the establishment, against the oligarchy, to stop war, to stop police brutality, to stop racism. We could do. There's a lot of things to help. Also, to help our economy and get a living wage for people. That's the last thing they want. They're now happy that gas prices are so high, so people will be forced to go back to poor-paying jobs. That's the world we're living in. And you're telling me that those people, those pretend So it seems to me that the Breadtube, or the people who say they're progressives or lefties on YouTube, but they're actually just shills for the Democratic Party. That's what I've noticed when I've looked a little into it. It's every time they're like, well, you have to vote for Joe Biden. You have to vote for Hillary Clinton. You have to vote for the squad. You have to vote for Democrats. And Democrats are better than Republicans. And they come up with crazy reasons why the Democrats are better than the Republicans. Meanwhile, more and more people fall into poverty. More and more people go bankrupt. More and more people can't get health care. And we have more and more billions and trillions of dollars for imperialism and wars, while they keep telling you to keep voting for them. I mean, and everybody does that, from Kyle Kalinske to Crystal Ball to, right? I mean, of course, the Young Turks. Would you consider those people Breadtube? Because it seems like they're doing the same thing, telling everybody to keep voting Democrat. And that's so you can go off and have your Marxist theories, and you can criticize Democrats, but you have to, at the end of the day, vote for them. And you can't ever entertain a third party. That's what I see that comes out of Breadtube. Would you consider that?
Sure.
And even if those people are not considered Breadtube per se, they're doing the same thing. They are feeding you into the Democratic Party. That's their job. That's their role. Now, once upon a time, I believed in putting progressive through the Democratic Party too, but that time has come and gone. I don't believe that anymore. But if those people are still sitting there and propping up people who use racist rhetoric, people who are defending pedophilia, people who are preaching pro-war, pro-imperialism, that tells you something about those people. And someone just put in the chat, where did it go? Lee said, Crystal and Kyle once invited Justin Jackson. Justin Jackson is a professional football player. That just proves my point. He's someone who is well known. He's someone who is technically kind of like a celebrity. If Justin Jackson worked at McDonald's and still had a Twitter account and still said the things that he said to AOC about them forcing the vote for Medicare for all, Justin Jackson would have not been invited on that show. Some of this shit is just for clout. Some people just want to see, let me see if I can get this big name person on. Let me see if I can get a celebrity on. Some of it is just for clout. Going back in, and then I'm going to go to the next story. Boopity boop.
Sure, well, it's the same script. They're reading from the same script. There's no question about it. I think Breadtube is more specifically aimed at teenagers, people in their early 20s.
Okay.
And it's got more of a grunge vibe. You know, it's people sitting in their basements streaming. It's documentaries and things that are more alternative looking. It's got that more punk rock alternative aesthetic. But it's the same script that Young Turks is using, the same script that Kyle Kalinske is using, same narrative. What I find interesting is, again, they've gone after you because, oh my gosh, you interviewed a Bugaloo boy, right? But none of this cancel culture ever applies to Joe Biden.
Ever.
I have to stop there because I did see Leroy just reminded me of my time. Thank you so much, Leroy. Because I get into it, and then sometimes, I do have a guest coming on at 8:30. So yeah, 100%. Someone just said something that I thought was really interesting. Synthex says AOC wouldn't have responded to Justin Jackson if he worked at McDonald's. Right? They don't want to talk to working class people. It's just a reality. I did see a comment here. Greg Bruce said, all Vosh knows is how to insult people and be a dick. There you go. George said, Sabby is great. MMA Nick Cruz. Who else is there? Recommend some people. Sabby. Follow Unapologetic on YouTube. He is heavily suppressed. He's really great with foreign policy. Definitely follow him on Substack as well. Follow the rest of us at RBN. Nick and I are on RBN, but there's also CJ and JB and Josana and Rome. Definitely follow Revolutionary Blackout Network. And then also I would check out people from MCSC like Nico and Franco and Glory, who does not get the credit and respect that she deserves. She is incredibly young. She is incredibly intelligent. And she does not get the respect that she deserves. And part of that, again, has to do with the fact that she's Black. I'm just going to be real. Glory could read circles around someone like Vosh, but you would never see her on Crystal Kyle and Friends. Just keep that in mind. Yes, Franco. Don't forget about Franco. I have to go into the next story, though, because Leroy told me about my time. So I need to do better at that. All right. So the next story that I want to get into is about Cenk Uygur. He has decided to smear Tulsi Gabbard. This is in reference to Russia and Ukraine. I'm just going to forewarn you, this is cringe, what you're about to hear. I definitely, I was never someone that was a Tulsi supporter per se. I don't agree with all of her takes. I agree with some of the things that she has to say. But still, at the end of the day, even if you're not a Tulsi Gabbard supporter, what Cenk is saying in this video should be somewhat disturbing to you. So let me go ahead and grab that. I don't know what happened to that link. Give me a second. No, okay, there we go.
That is the thing.
All right, listen to this. Again, this is on TYT's channel, so you can also see this yourself as well. And yeah, this is concerning. Here we go.
Thing that is most tragic about this heartbreaking situation with this war is that it could have been avoided if President Biden and NATO had done exactly what you were just talking about in agreeing, hey, we're going to take NATO off the table for Ukraine, something that both the U.S. and NATO have agreed is not likely to ever happen, and something that is a legitimate security concern for Russia.
Recently exposed FEC records show that an alleged Russian agent operating for political influence inside of the US in the end donated to only one campaign for president in the 2020 election, that is Tulsi Gabbard, with some interesting wrinkles that we're gonna get into. So this agent is a dual Russian-American national, Elena Branson. She stands accused of illegally pushing pro-Russian policies in the US for nearly a decade at the direction of top Kremlin officials without registering under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Like, you could do that, but you do have to actually register. It makes it a little bit easier to understand where you're coming from, which is why many have not. This is not the only agent who has operated, and not just for Russia, but understand that. Now, her work, the complaint about her said her work on behalf of the Russian government, including arranged meetings for herself and other Russian officials with US government officials and executives at businesses based in the US. Authorities say that she received funding and direction from the Russian government, including the country's embassy in Washington, and received tasks from high-level Russian government officials and government-run organizations. Now, as we said, one donation in 2020, it was to Tulsi Gabbard, but with the potentially interesting and important caveat that it was for $60, and not even in one $60 lump. I mean, you can see there it comes across in two separate $50.
So I just want to jump in here because I do want to make a comparison. So it's really interesting to me that TYT is going to complain about donations that Tulsi Gabbard received from someone who was supposedly a Russian agent, whatever. $60 they just told you. But you will not hear them talk about the money and the people who have donated to Justice Democrats, which Cenk was a part of, by the way. You're not going to hear them talk about the fact that George Soros donated to Justice Democrats. And in fact, if someone brought it up on their show, they'd probably make excuses for it. You don't hear them talking about who donated to AOC. You don't hear them talking about who was donating to Jessica Cisneros. You don't hear them talking about that. And those two were progressives, by the way. They were both Justice Democrats. But they're going to bring up $60. Meanwhile, you have an entire organization, Justice Democrats, that has received thousands and thousands of dollars from George Soros. You have Ilhan Omar, who has received direct payments from George Soros, but you're not going to hear them talk about that. They're going to talk about $60. I'll let it go on.
and $10. Why?
Yeah.
What, like, if the goal is influence, based on my experience of donations, that doesn't buy you much directly. So
yeah.
So why?
I have a theory. So first, those are the facts. When we get into theories, of course, it's by definitions a little bit of speculation, right? So we're always clear about that. Now, it's so curious why anybody reading the story has to think, why $49.95 and $10? What the hell? Like, that's not gonna matter at all. So there's a bunch of other possibilities. So one is that it's a signal. When she donates, it signals others to donate, right? Because otherwise, why give a comically low number? And did Tulsi get donations from other people that are known not as Russian spies, but decidedly pro-Russian in their commentary publicly, etc.? Yes, she did. She got thousands from them, okay? But even so, it wasn't a spectacular number. So then you have to wonder, and look, Tulsi now is pretty much given up the game. Like, before, there was a lot of subterfuge. There was, oh, I'm a progressive, but God, if you're killing Muslims in Syria, I'm kind of here for it, right? And we were like, whoa, she likes the torture, she likes the drone bombs, and
Cenk is full of it right here because Cenk is talking about himself. There's a clip, I have to go back and find it, but there's a clip. This is back when Jimmy was still part of TYT, where Cenk Uygur was totally okay with this, by the way, was totally okay with the drone strikes. He was totally okay with the drone strikes in Libya. Cenk Uygur was okay with that. He admits that on TYT. So how are you going to criticize Tulsi when you seem to be okay with these drone strikes as well? How are you? What? He mentions that Tulsi Gabbard, oh, well, she said she tried to be progressive and now she's not, and now she's da-da-da. And let's be clear here. Let's talk about what TYT has tried to be, because everybody knows your talking points have changed. You guys took that money from Jeffrey Katzenberg and you sold out. They're going in about this $60. They don't even have proof. Where's the proof of the other people who donated to her? I haven't seen that. When I told you guys that Jessica Cisneros took dark money, when I told you Justice Democrats took dark money, I showed you receipts. Now I feel like he's just speculating. He has the receipt of the $60. I don't see the receipts of all these other people that he said donated to her. I'll go back in.
the special forces and anything where you attack Muslims, she's totally in. So there was warning signs. We picked up on those warning signs. We were the first to tell you about it. Now she's at the point where she's just like, I can't believe what the Ukrainians are doing to poor Putin, right? So there's no subtlety left anymore at all. And anyone who isn't brain dead knows that she's obviously partial to Putin's government. So $60 isn't what led to that. And so I don't know if there was dark money. I don't know in terms of her campaigns. I don't know if there's just flat out money. Now, the money we do know about, it comes through some legitimate, quote unquote, legitimate sources, as in it's not illegal. Like, so when she goes on Tucker Carlson and says, oh, my daddy Putin is just the best of the best, and Tucker Carlson agrees, oh, yeah, high five on Putin, then she gets a lot of.
He's speculating here. Tulsi Gabbard has never said that on Tucker Carlson's show. Obviously. I've never seen her say he's the best of the best. I've never seen her say that. But what they are doing, people like TYT, Majority Report, you can add them to this bag too. Anyone who speaks the truth about the bad parts of the Ukrainian government, who talks about the Nazis, who talks about how Black people are being treated in Ukraine. Anyone that is speaking up about that side of the story, they are trying to smear them and say that they are a Russian asset and say that they are pro-Russia. A lot of these talking heads are doing it. as if you're only allowed to point out the bad with one country but not the other. And that is the same rhetoric and talking points that you are hearing from mainstream media. More and more every day, some of these so-called left networks sound too much like CNN or MSNBC. More and more every day, especially when it comes to this conflict with Ukraine and Russia. I think it is quite foolish to pretend like Ukraine has done nothing wrong. And I'll be the first person to tell you that. But so many people have bought into this narrative that is, oh, Russia bad. We're just supposed to hate Russia, by the way. Jink's letting you know that too. We're supposed to hate Russia. And if you don't, you'll be smeared. You're the bad guy. That is what they're doing here. Them coming after Tulsi like this, again, I said I was not a Tulsi supporter. I don't agree with some of the things that she says. Some of the things she says, I do agree with. Do I think NATO was a problem? Absolutely. That's a big part of this. But for them to just come after Tulsi like this is a smear tactic. Listen to the rest of what he says.
The right-wing grassroots donors to her different ventures that she's doing on right-wing websites, right? So that's a lot of people play that game, the Jimmy Dores, the gray zones, et cetera. And they're getting presumably organic money from.
Did you hear what he just said? So now he's mentioning Jimmy Dore, gray zone. He's pointing out the fact that, oh, well, Tulsi Gabbard, she's been putting things on these right-wing websites. A lot of people are starting to do this now. Jimmy Dore, gray zone. No, what is happening is you have more people that are in media that are going to other platforms because we continue to be censored on YouTube. Jink's leaving that part out. That's why you have people joining Rumble. Let's be real here. Tell the whole story. So he just smeared 3 people there: Tulsi Gabbard, Jimmy Dore, and the gray zone. The gray zone does phenomenal work, by the way. I don't even see Jink get up from his desk. So it appears to me anyone who is pointing out the full story of what is going on with this crisis, they are trying to smear them. And I want to be very clear. Just because someone is on Rumble does not mean that they are right wing. There are more left media is going over there again because of the censorship. I just heard earlier today, Chris Hedges is gone now. They took down his show on YouTube. And people like Cenk Uygur and the other clowns of the world are going to try to convince you that these people are actually secret right-wing people because they're telling you the other side of it, which Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, and them are not telling you the other side. They're paid to not tell you the other side because Jeffrey Katzenberg wouldn't like that. I mean, if we want to go into critiques and we want to talk about criticizing people, you guys took money from Jeffrey Katzenberg, who wanted to criminalize homelessness in Los Angeles. So if you really cared about the poor working class people, as you claimed when you were all pro Bernie Sanders, you would have a problem with that. You don't. In fact, Afeni and I covered that story when Anna Kasparian was just basically telling you she didn't want the homeless people around, looking her nose down on the poor folk. Some of those people who are homeless because they lost their jobs. Some of those people are homeless because of gentrification. She didn't go into that though. Just, I don't want these homeless people are everywhere. Why do you have a large population of homeless people? That may have something to do with the capitalist system. California is one of the most expensive states in the United States to live in. Maybe instead of shaming the poors and the working class people, maybe you should point fingers at the system. Let me go back into the clown.
Right-wingers for liking Putin so much. But this was during when she was in office. Man, this part I don't know at all. But if there was, somebody should keep digging, because there could be more money that we're not seeing, because Tulsi and the others are not a little like, oh, well, you know what? NATO expansion was too much. That's a legitimate point, right? Oh, I don't know that we should have pushed so hard in before the war. No, Zelensky said we don't have to be in NATO. He basically conceded in that regard, and it was right too. I think it was content-wise, substantively, it was right. Strategically, it was right. But at that point, there was no reason for Putin to go in, and he went in anyway. He clearly had planned to do this invasion all along. Those facts are not in dispute. And the Tulsis of the world are like, no. I think the Ukrainians made him do it, and America made him do it. Putin's, is so that's so not subtle that it's impossible not to inquire further into what in the world would make you say such outrageous and patently false things.
What in the world makes TYT say such false things? Because they've done this a number of times. But this is what they're doing now. They're smearing Tulsi Gabbard. They keep pointing out, like, I knew they were going to mention this. Oh, she goes on Tucker Carlson and she says this. But again, as I mentioned to you earlier in the show, they don't seem to have a problem with the fact that Nomiki Kunst is on Fox News on a regular. They have no problem with that. Because she has the same talking points as them. It's only when it's someone who does not have the same talking points, that is not trying to keep you still in this two-party system, that understands the class problem that we have in this country, someone who is going to speak to both sides of this crisis with Russia and Ukraine. That is why they smear Tulsi Gabbard. That is why they smear Jimmy Dore. That is why they smear the gray zone, and that they would smear you too if they knew who you were. That's what this is about. At this point, Cenk and the rest of them just might as well go ahead and join CNN and MSNBC. And you have to remember, where did Cenk come from? He came from mainstream media. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Shout out Marcus Cage, just getting in. How's everyone doing? Hello, Marcus. Shout out to Ashira, says, who passed Sabby a very spicy sandwich? She's on fire. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for the super chat as well, Ashira. Kyle brags about golfing with Justin. Thanks so much for the super chat, Ashira. Yeah, because that's someone who's a celebrity. He wouldn't brag about golfing with Justin if he worked at McDonald's. Thanks so much for the super chat too, Ashira. Tick, tick, tick. Jinx conspiracy garbage brain. Thanks for the super chat. ThinkPad20. Agree or disagree with Tulsi issue by issue? At least I feel like she has integrity. Frankly, seeing who is going after her tells me all I need to know. Good point. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the super chat as well, Ashira. Jimmy showed a graph where wage theft is higher. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I'll take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. Thanks so much for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Sab, did the surveillance and security state get terrible in their propaganda, or did we step up our game after them losing the pub trust CIA/NSA work for Core A? We must get rid of parties, replace corporations with worker co-ops, flatten the power of Wall Street with chartering public banks at every level of government, get big government out of politics, and do it all at the state level. First, be it ballot initiatives and state government. We are the government. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Thank you for this one as well. Kenshi Jones, I like your picture. Well, Cenk did say up front he is speculating as he answers to his daddy Katzenberg. Sab, can you provide us with the Peace Corps link page? I went to their site and couldn't find it. Also, NATO should not only have honored not to bring more countries into NATO, but should have discussed it once the Warsaw Pact dissolved. What Hedges is gone. Oh, what Hedges is gone. Jink Belly won't let him get out from the desk. Oh, Roger, that's crucial. Yikes. Yes, I can give you that Peace Corps link. So for those who don't know, I did talk about this the other day about how the Peace Corps was warning African Americans about volunteering in Ukraine and what they may experience from that. So Roger is asking me to share that link, and I am going to do that. And then my next guest should be here shortly. Peace Corps, Ukraine. Other than that, how are you guys doing tonight? It's Wednesday. We're almost there for the weekend. Cheers to the freaking 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 weekend. All right. I have to search for it. Let me see if I deleted it. You guys ready for the weekend? You ready to do the damn thing? What's everyone like while we're waiting for the next guest? What's everyone watching right now? I need a new show to watch. Let me know. I finished this show on Netflix. I highly recommend. It's called oh shoot. It's the one about the woman. It's Pieces of Her. If you haven't seen that and you like thrillers, definitely check out Pieces of Her. It's really, really, really good. I found it. Pieces of Her. It's on Netflix. I can't really tell you anything about it because it would give it away. I'm just being honest. But yeah, that was hard to stop watching. I don't know what else I should watch, you guys. I don't know. There's so much stuff on Netflix. I was watching Shoot Balls. What is it? What's the name of that? Oh, Married at First Sight. Don't start watching that. Don't start watching Married at First Sight. God, that show is something else. Would you guys just marry someone that you didn't see? Because like the first time they meet is the day they're getting married. They are put together by relationship experts. Would you guys do that? I wouldn't do that. That's kind of weird. Oh, Jonathan said, I finished Bad Vegan and it was annoying. Oh, okay. I haven't seen that. Maybe I should give that at least give it a try. Bridgerton? Oh, I haven't seen that either. I could watch that as well. Oh, there's 2 seasons. Oh, you're giving me some work. I got some homework. SM said no, she would not marry someone sight unseen. I wouldn't either. It's really weird. Like, then like they have like 8 weeks or something like that to decide like if they want to stay married or if they want to get divorced. It's just weird, man. I don't know. People do some weird stuff. Oh yeah, there's another one called Love is Blind. That's another one, similar thing. But at least with Love is Blind, they get to talk to the person in these pods, but they can't see them. So you don't know if the person that you're picking, you're actually going to be physically attracted to or not. You really don't know. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. I haven't seen that. I'll have to check that out. Greg Bruce, I think the nature of relationships is so complicated that relationship experts still haven't figured it out. Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, Kitty Loves Films just said so much info I didn't know. We might need a summit on this. I'm very naive on this topic. Yeah, I've been wanting to do some type of summit on climate change. And I would think that we could have a segment for that where we talk about food, like growing your own food. SM said, what's that on Love is Blind? Love is Blind is on Netflix. They only have 2 seasons, so that was pretty funny, by the way. Okay, let's see if Rose is here. Do 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 do. Oh, and there she is. All right. All right, everyone. So I do want to introduce Rose Penelope Yee. She is an independent candidate running for the House of Representatives in California's 1st District. All
Hi,
right.
Sabby.
Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to be here.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming on. So I want to get started. Like, introduce yourself to everyone and why you decided to run for House of Representatives in your district.
Sure. Can I just do a little rejoinder to Tulsi Gabbard? I was
Yeah.
watching the show, and so I know what you're talking about. Some people probably don't know that she was actually a rising star in the Democratic Party. Oh, thank you, Leroy. So she was a rising star in the Democratic Party in 2015. She was actually I think the vice president at the time, or vice chair of the DNC, but because she did not agree, or she saw from the inside what the DNC was doing to Bernie, Tulsi made a big thing about it, and she actually resigned from her position with the DNC. And I think from that point on, DNC and everybody, Hillary especially, had trained their bows and arrows at Tulsi. So regardless of what she was going to do, they were just going to go after her.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I did forget about that. That's true. She saw what was going on, so she was definitely going to be a target regardless. But you're running for a House of Representatives in California. What district is District 1? Where is that?
So it's District 1, California. It's the upper, if you look at the map, it's the kind of the northeast portion of California. So it covers a pretty rural area. There are 10 counties, 8 full counties, and then 2 partial of other counties that make up District 1. And it's fairly rural. It's I would say the average income of the residents in the district is below the national average, because most of the people are engaged in rural work, service work. The district is 75% white, 4%, roughly 4 to 5% Asian, and 2% Black, 14% plus Hispanic.
Okay. All right.
So that kind of gives you a picture. And okay, sorry, go ahead.
Can you explain to everyone why you decided to run as an independent?
So I'm not really a politician, Sabby. I had no visions of entering politics. It's kind of like something that was even inconceivable to me. But what happened is I've always been an independent thinker and an independent voter, and I only registered as a Democrat when Bernie ran in 2016 and 2020. And so I didn't really have, even at the beginning, I would say like good faith in the Democratic Party. And so what happened is, but I've always been like a big supporter of progressive candidates like AOC, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, Nina Turner. And I had such high hopes, when, I got crushed, obviously, like most of us, when Bernie was dealt that blow by the the DNC. But then when AOC and the squad got elected, there was such high hopes, right? Because they were campaigning on the issues that I cared about, like Medicare for all. And then force the vote happened, right? And force the vote, I was so excited that Cori Bush won and Jamal Bowman. I was really, really, I would say encouraged and excited that Cori won, because just by her background, right? She was an activist. She had experienced homelessness, and she was a woman of color. She was Black, and she was outspoken, and she was like such a strong person that I thought that she would be such a change agent to the fact that the squad really hadn't done much in their first 2 years. And then Jamal Bowman also won, and I thought, well, finally, right, we have a chance that there's more of them now, and they'll be able to do something. And then force the vote happened, and they didn't do anything. So that was kind of like the first kind of like opened my eyes to the fact that regardless of what you say in the election, and regardless of who you are, and what or how you portray yourself as a candidate, the party is still not going to allow you to do the things that you promised you would do, or that maybe there's something inside that system that people who seem like so honest, right, in their depiction of themselves as candidates, just get squashed, and for some reason kind of like do that 180 is it 180 degree turn, and then all of a sudden don't do what they've promised to do. And I had hopes because they supposedly were funded by us, right? By us voters. So that was the thing. And then Medicare for All March happened, and Nina Turner, who again I had admired so much, campaigned with AOC right at the same time that the Medicare for All March was happening in her district, or maybe it wasn't in her district, but it was close by. And neither of them mentioned the march. None of the squad members mentioned the march.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. And I just got so upset, Sabby. And I started thinking to myself, why isn't somebody stepping up? And then I thought again, well, why am I expecting somebody to step up if I'm not willing to do it myself? And so that thought just stayed with me and stayed with me and stayed with me. And I said, I just have to do it. So there you go. Here I am doing something that I didn't plan to do at all.
No, I think that's awesome. What are some of the issues that you feel are the most important in reference to your district?
I think what's important to our district, there are particular issues that are important, but there are issues that are universal, that are apply not just to my district, but to all the other districts as well. And that forms the core of the campaign issues that I have. And so the first one, obviously, is Medicare for all, because that was kind of the driving force. The second is that I believe that Americans should not have to suffer from want. And so I really, really believe that a universal basic income, something like a basic survival income, would help people. And then number three, I believe that higher education should be free for all Americans. And so it's college, free public colleges and universities. But because my district is here in a rural area where we have more tradespeople actually, and some of our youth don't really want to go to college, so it's college and trade schools. The trade schools should be made available because Sabby, I know, I think you've touched on it in your show several times that, especially I think it was in the Friday call-in where there was a caller who said, who mentioned trade schools. Trade actually offers our youth a really, really good pathway to having a stable income, and not just a, it's when we talk about living wage. I mean, think about when you hire a plumber. I mean, that's $80, right, for the plumber to just show up, and
Right.
as opposed to let's say you go to college, you graduate, you get a clerical position, you're paid $15 an hour, and you don't have control of your time too. So trade schools are really, really important in my district. So college and trade schools for all. And then again, in reference to your Friday show, cancellation of student debt. It's totally unacceptable to me that Joe Biden had in his pre-election promises. Oh, thank you, Game and Ganja. That he promised to at least cancel some portion of student debt, right? Because he wasn't going to cancel everything. But even that small portion of student debt, I think was at 10,000 or 50,000. He didn't even do it, and he could do it with an executive order. And so now we have Biden asking for a $31 billion increase in the military budget for 2023. Did you see that?
Yep.
$31 billion, and he's not willing to do something for young people who went to college and who got into debt because of that. I mean, that's not acceptable, right? And I mean, that's enough to I don't know about you, but well, I know because I watch your show, and I'm so glad you have your show. But I don't know how, like a lot of our parents nowadays. I mean, my son has already graduated from college, so we're not in that anymore. But think about like the parents of high schoolers right now who have to worry about their kids. I mean, that's, again, we shouldn't have that in this country, right? If we look at Denmark, for example, so my family went to Denmark for a vacation in 2014, and our tour guide was this young man from Australia who actually immigrated to Denmark, and he went to college there. And he said that when you go to college there, to a public college, you don't have to pay anything. And not only that, if you're smart enough to get to college and accepted at the public college, you get a stipend.
Yep.
So if Denmark, that's a small country, can do that, why can't we do it? Like, we were like really astounded to hear that because we didn't know. And I think that's the thing, Sabby, is that one reason why I'm running is to elevate the conversation, is to bring this to people's attention. Like, a lot of times, and it's also in the I think human psyche where we hear concepts, right? We hear theories like free college, and it gets shut down because people would say, well, who's going to pay for that? Or I don't want to pay for somebody else's kid to go to college. But what it is they need to realize that other countries are doing this for their citizens, for their youth.
Right.
If that they're investing, they see this as investments, right? And we need to see this as investments. So two things is that by running and having a platform to spread the message and to share stories and to get people to see things from a different perspective, where we compare what we have in the US with what we have in other countries, then that gets people to open their eyes to see that, well, maybe we don't have it so good. Maybe the government needs to do something for us. That maybe it is time we ask our government do something for us.
Yep. Yep. That comes with the individual mindset in this country that we just have here, like as Americans. Like, I don't feel like we really have a sense of community here in the United States, not the way that we could have, right? Here it's all about the individual. And this is something like my students used to talk to me about. International students used to mention to me the same thing. Is like they came here and they're like, what is this whole like selfish American attitude? It just seems like everybody just cares about their self and what's theirs and not so much their neighbor or their community. And that's unfortunate. And I think that's one of the big problems that we do have here, like just as a country. But I'm curious, Atrice.
Can I have a rejoinder on that, Sabby?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just say something about that? Yeah, if we look at Noam Chomsky's 10 principles for the concentration of wealth and power, the fifth principle is that to end solidarity. Because if we as a people, if Americans don't care for each other, then it is easier for those with wealth and power to do what they want with the systems that we have. It's easier for them. It's easier for them to deny us healthcare. It's easier for them to deny our youth a college education or trade education. It's easier for them to not raise the minimum wage. It's easier for them to do all the things that they need to keep their power and to concentrate it, as we have seen in the pandemic. And as we have seen, I know you just talked about Breadtube, right? So because they have so much money, they can do it. Okay, so go ahead with your question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Atrice had a question for you. What's Rose's thoughts on the state of the Jefferson movement in Northern California / South Oregon?
So we do have that state of Jefferson. Not too many people know about that. It was actually, they got enough, I think, signatures to have something on the ballot. We have this thing in California with our propositions. It's a very, I would say, ultra right group that does it. And they are fairly present here in this district. We actually have like we actually have some stores like a machine store where you get your power tools and stuff, has like a State of Jefferson sign on it. So it is still, though, a fringe movement, and it's not going to get anywhere. The challenge, though, in what might be the trend is that if the inequality that we have keeps on growing, as more and more people get angry at the government, where it's the populism on the right. So what I'm trying to do is populism on the left. But when we have such drastic inequality, and we have so much like indeed problems and crime brought about by poverty, more and more people would be attracted to such movements. And that's actually one reason why I'm running now, because I feel that if we don't do anything, if we don't recognize that the two-party system is not going to fix anything, we're not going to get anywhere. I'm hoping that, even though this is like clearly a heavily Republican district, that as an independent, I can raise issues that would make people at least think differently about why we have the problems that we have, and think of it in a more systemic way.
Yeah.
For example, can I give an example, Sabby?
Sure, go ahead.
So one example is there was a recall here of supervisors, of a supervisor in one of the county districts, and when the three candidates, all white, all male, were asked, about the problem of crime in the district, the answer amongst all three that was very common is that we will solve crime by hiring more police and by building a new jail. And so that in essence was their is what the I would say what they want us to think, right? That the answer to crime is always policing and jails, when from our populist point of view, the answer to crime is to eliminate poverty, because we will always have crime, but we will lower it if we give people enough to eat so that they're not food insecure, if we provide them with the ability to have homes and roofs over their heads so that they're not housing insecure, if we have healthcare that they can access at any time for anything that they need so that they are not health insecure. I strongly believe, Sabby, that it's the if we address the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic food, clothing, and shelter, if we have people secure, if they have income security, that goes a long way in solving crime in our district. And none of them would answer that. It's always jail, it's always police.
I agree. Rose, two questions. When is the election, and where can people find you on social media?
Okay, so the election is on June 7th. California has an open primary season, which means that it's the first, the top two candidates in the race are the ones that advance to the general. So regardless of what party affiliation you are, if you're in the top two, you advance. They can find me on Twitter, Jedi Rose. I have a Facebook page. It is Ye for You. So that's YEE, my last name, for you.com. Oh, and that's also the website, which I'm working on. Oh, thank you, Eric P.
Eric's on it. All right, Rose, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, definitely make sure that you check out Rose's Facebook page, also her Twitter as well. And please share this with as many people as possible, especially those of you that live in Northern California.
Oh, that would be great. And thank you so much, Sabby. I'm such a big fan. And I just want to say thank you as well, because we need independent podcasters like you, independent voices like you. Yours are the voices that should be elevated. And if I might add that if in the very slimmest of chance I do get elected, I will definitely elevate independent media. And that's, it's so important to a functioning democracy.
Oh, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
All right. I think I got a super chat here from Roger Meadows. Big question in Rockfin. Thanks so much for the super chat, Roger. So it seems like there's something I may have missed here. Okay. Thanks so much for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. What about federal law mandating all states allow their voters to go completely around state government and place initiatives directly on the ballot so voters can pass state law and amend their constitution? Section 1 can protect the signature gathering process in terms of no reasonable deadlines to get them and mandate states help in costs and streamline process. Section 2, anything voters pass that state government wishes to repeal or alter, they must ask their voters first by proposing to the voters a legislative referred ballot proposal. So if they wish to alter, not repeal, then have federal law say that the state government must not only put in writing what they wish to change language to, but also spell out their intent so it is made clear if voters have to bring to a court of law for violating something. For violating. Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that, Roger Meadows. Eric said, I'd vote for Rose. Yeah, she dived deep into it, right? Not just giving you, and someone mentioned this, a kid, wow, thoughtful and meaningful answer from Rose, not quick sound bites. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Very meaningful. And yeah, she brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think that, you know, I learned about that in school and I was just kind of like, okay, how many times am I going to hear about this? But when looking at the way that things are today, especially in this country, we don't have those needs met, really. See if I can put that up for a second. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not sure why I said it like that. I'm so sorry. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm going to put this up on the screen. Here we go. Who are you? Who? I really want to know. It won't let me save it? What happened here? Oh, you guys won't let me save it? Okay. I guess I'll just have to show you this way then. I don't know why I did that. For some reason, it wouldn't let me save the image. You punks. Can I go to the website? Oh my God, this is like a page from like 1997 or something. It's one of those old sites. All right, I'll just share my screen. All right. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, I'm glad that she brought this up. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So let's start with the bottom. The physiological. I can't zoom in, can I? Maybe a little bit. No, see, I hate these things. Okay, the physiological need at the bottom. Breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, excretion. Some people don't have that. That's just the physiological needs, right? Does everybody have food? Does everybody have water? We were just talking about water issues earlier on with Michelle about where we're headed in this country in reference to water. I hate that it won't let me. You know what? I'm going to snip this, you guys. Snip. Yeah. I don't know why I said it like that. I'm so sorry. And will let me zoom? Dude. Great. I'll share it now. Let me come out of here. I have a bigger picture. It's just better if you can actually see it. That's all I'm saying. I really want to know. Who are you? Who? No. Okay, let me scooch. Oh no, it's not gonna switch, is it? Okay, no, it's not. Okie doke. How did you just let me zoom in and not zoom in? Yay. All right, let's do the damn thing. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we talked about the physiological portion, right? Hold on. There's Maslow in the group. So we talked about that part. And then next is safety. Okay. Someone sending me something? Can you click read? Okay, never mind. So next is safety. And it says security of body, of employment, of resources, of morality, of the family, of health, of property. Does everyone in this country have that? I would argue no. Does everyone have, especially when we talk about property, everyone doesn't even own property. Next is love/belonging. That's friendship, family, sexual intimacy. Although, this may need to be revised today because friendship and family, this needs to be revised. When you think about family, family doesn't necessarily include a kid. So I think they should change that. And also sexual intimacy. What about people who are asexual? Right? Next, you have esteem, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect by others. This one needs a lot of work. We really need to work on this one. A lot of people are just not respected and don't respect each other. Confidence is huge. By the way, people can tell if you're not confident. So confidence is huge. And then at the top, we have self-actualization. Morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of facts. But in order to get to the top of self-actualization, you have to start at the bottom and you have to start with the physiological. And I just told you, not everybody has that. So how are you going to get to self-actualization if you don't have these other needs that are met? Yeah, Gamer for Ganja for Life is right. The pyramid doesn't represent everyone at all. No, it doesn't. I really think this needs to be revised to fit the current state that we have today. Right? I don't know. Some things need to change here. Obviously, you need to breathe. You need food. You need water. Everyone doesn't need sex, though. If they're asexual, they don't need that. So we can take that out. Things have changed. Things have changed. But yeah. But we have a long way to go. Like I said, most people, or not most people, excuse me, some people don't have the basic needs met. And you'll notice under self-actualization, it says lack of prejudice. You have to have all of these needs met before you even get to the point where you have a lack of prejudice. That's interesting. Now, it says over here about self-actualization, a person's motivation to reach his or her full potential. As shown in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a person's basic needs must be met before self-actualization can be achieved. So there you go. You have to have the basic needs met first. So according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that could be part of the problem. That could be part of the problem why some people still have prejudice. Got to have those basic needs met. And again, I would argue that this goes back to the class issue. If you're poor, if you're working class, you may not have those basic needs, some of them. You may view people who are not like you just very differently because you're not having the exposure. So it just really makes you think. I'm glad that Rose brought that up. I haven't looked at that pyramid in a long time, actually. It's been a minute. But yeah, I think just as people as general, I think we need to do better about community and building community in this country. I think I have a super chat from Ashura. Thanks so much for the super chat, Ashura. Funny thing, the male cartoon is a Ned Flanders. That's interesting. Greg Bruce says it's not healthy if you need others to respect you. That's not to say you shouldn't demand it, but doing so is just part of respecting yourself. That's a good point. Well said. Sweary Fairy said if you want to destroy your emotions entirely, you could watch Supernatural. I have not seen that show, and I know people have mentioned it. I don't know, man. Leroy says if you're a foodie and you like anime, watch Food Wars. Ooh, I may have to check that out. How long is Supernatural? How many seasons? I'm kind of looking for, I should have mentioned this. I'm kind of looking for a show that, I don't know, maybe has like 1 or 2 seasons. I want to get too sucked in. That's what happened with Breaking Bad years ago. When they put Breaking Bad on Netflix, that was not good for me. There were some times I didn't want to leave my apartment. I was consumed by Breaking Bad. What is Walter White going to do next? Oh man, that show was something else. All right, guys, it's my time. Time for me to head out. Tomorrow's Thursday, so I'm not here. 17 seasons. Oh God, no, I can't do that. Tomorrow's Thursday. I'm not here. I'll be on Roundtable, but I will post clips. So definitely I'll post clips from tonight's live stream. So for the people who just want the shorter version, just want to get straight to the point, that'll be posted tomorrow. I'll be back Friday. I do have a guest coming on Friday, and we'll start the call-in portion at 9:00 as usual. Ted Glick is going to be here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He ran Third Party before. He was progressive before I even knew what progressive was. So he's an old school progressive. He's done a lot of activism. They tried to put him in jail at one point. Like there's a lot going on there. There's a lot to talk about. So I definitely want to pick his brain about how to actually get something going with the third party in this country to the point where people are actually going to go out and vote for third party candidates or independent candidates. I want to hear about his experience. And again, it'd be nice to talk to someone who's been a progressive for like such a long time, like has really been out there as an activist fighting for a lot of these issues that we talk about often. So Ted Glick will be here Friday. I'm excited about that. Come back and join me then. Until then, guys, have a good night. Keep up the fight.